Video number 34. I'm going to read something that Jesus Christ said. It's in Matthew chapter 6 and verse 9. He said, "You must pray then this way. Our Father in the heavens, let your name be sanctified. Let your kingdom come. Let your will be done, as in heaven, also upon the earth." So here, after Jesus Christ had already set up his kingdom, Christianity, he's telling everyone to pray for God's kingdom to come and God's will to be done on the earth. So that's why the Revelation chapter 12, great sign in heaven, is so important. So perhaps I should read that again. Revelation chapter 12. And I'll start in verse 10. "Now have come to pass the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God." So all the things that Christians have been praying for begin to happen now, when this great sign is seen in the heavens. The woman with 12 stars above her head, and she gives birth to a male child. So he's taken to his throne, and he will be a shepherd, a guide. So one of those 12 stars now has a king. If you think those 12 stars represent the 12 tribes of Israel. But hold on. Here, Jesus Christ, he's already a king. King of the tribe of Judah. So who's this male child born when this great sign is seen and the kingdom that Jesus Christ tells all Christians to pray for actually comes? Another king is now sitting on one of those thrones in the 12 tribes of Israel. So now there's two thrones. Two thrones of the tribes of Israel who have a king sitting on one of those thrones. So what about the other 10? What about the other 10 thrones? You ever think about that? So if now has come to pass the salvation and the kingdom of our God, God's kingdom, through the birth of a male child, born with labor pains, then what would it be like? Because the kingdom then is now starting, the kingdom that all Christians have prayed for. So I'll remind you what Jesus Christ said it would be like during that time when the great sign is seen. And I'm in Mark chapter 4, and I'll start in verse 30. And he went on to say, with what are we to liken the kingdom of our God? Or in what illustration shall we set it out? Like a mustard grain, which at the time it was sown in the ground, the earth, was the tiniest of all the seeds that are on the earth. The mustard grain. So if now has come to pass the salvation and the kingdom of our God, that mustard seed is sown in the earth. So now God's will can take place on the earth as it is in heaven, and it starts with just one tiny mustard grain. How does it end? So if there's the King of the Jews, the tribe of Judah, Jesus Christ, and now there's another king sitting on a throne, then a rebirth is happening. The rebirth that Jesus Christ spoke about to his apostles, to whom he promised that men would sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. But what about those 10 other kings? Well, remember when we allowed Scripture to interpret Scripture, it talked about the sons of Jacob in Micah chapter 3. Shall we read that again? So here it is in Micah chapter 3. And I proceeded to say, hear, please, you heads of Jacob, and you commanders of the house of Israel. Is it not your business to know justice? So, commanders of the house of Israel, sons of Jacob, in the final part of the days, ruling over Jesus Christ's kingdom that has been completely corrupted through an operation of error, according to the operation of Satan himself. And these heads of Jacob, commanders of the house of Israel, sons of Jacob, who should in fact understand things pertaining to justice, are here. The fourth fearsome and terrible beast with the 10 horns. 10 kings. 10 sons of Jacob. So if it really is 10 of these kings, 10 sons of Jacob, who should have had an opportunity to sit on thrones along with Jesus Christ, because after all, there's 12 stars above the woman's head, and yet only one male child actually sits on a throne during the final part of the days. Then what about those 10? So now, if you're a very discerning Bible reader, you could go to Genesis chapter 49 and figure out who the male child really is, the shepherd. Because he's not the king of the Jews, the tribe of Judah. So who is this shepherd king of? Which tribe? There you go. Everyone who's followed along and seen the previous 33 videos should now have enough information to make that determination for themselves and find out who this shepherd is, the male child who was born and sits on a throne in heaven. So here you go. I'll just read the first part of Genesis chapter 49 for you. It says in verse 1, later on, Jacob called his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you what will happen to you in the final part of the days. So we already know Judah has a king, King of the Jews, Jesus Christ. So which one of these other sons will sit on a throne during the final part of the days and shepherd the people, guide them? The answer's here. You just have to read it. But here's something to think about while you're reading it. There were 12 first century apostles, and they were told that they might sit on 12 thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So is this Genesis chapter 49 describing those 12 first century apostles, one of which was a son of desolation? Or is Genesis chapter 49 describing 12 end time personalities, sons of Jacob, commanders of the house of Israel, who might also have that same opportunity to sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel? So you've got an important decision to make, and it might overturn everything you've been previously convinced to believe about the Bible and about Christianity, Jesus Christ's kingdom, and about God's actual kingdom and how it might really come when that great sign is seen in the heavens and the male child is actually delivered and sits on a throne as a shepherd to the peoples. So there's some homework for you. So what else happens during the final part of the days? Well, Micah chapter 4. I'll read that again for you. Starting in verse 1. And it must occur in the final part of the days that the mountain of the house of Jehovah will become firmly established above the top of the mountains, and it will certainly be lifted up above the hills, and to it peoples must stream. And many nations will certainly go and say, "Come, you people, and let us go up to the mountain of Jehovah, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will instruct us about his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion law will go forth, and the word of Jehovah out of Jerusalem." Our Father, let your name be sanctified. Let your kingdom come. And let your will take place on the earth as it is in heaven. Now has come to pass the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God, God's kingdom.